Hello Spartans, welcome back. First of all, I would like to apologize for skipping a week of video. Unfortunately, after 5 long years, my Yeti died. Yeti, wherever you are right now, if you can hear me, I still remember the day when I pulled you out of the box. When we used to watch the sunset together. And even your uncanny ability to pick up on noises that I don't remember hearing while recording my YouTube videos. You will be missed but not forgotten. You may have realized that I'm recording from a different angle and also during the day. That's because over time I've realized that recording at night it's not really optimal for me. First, I tend to be quite tired and distracted after a long day of work, and at the same time this does not really fit my professional and my social lives. Also, I found that the background was quite cluttered and distracting, and this one is much more simple. Unfortunately, at this point in time, I do not have the resources or the flexibility to create a proper scenario for my videos that does justice to the brand Cybersecurity. But I'm hoping that in a couple of months that will change, so stay tuned. Now that is it for logistics, but let's talk about this week's video. The video Is Cybersecurity the Right Field for Me is the most popular of my channel, and also one of the most controversial. And it's not because I mentioned cocaine right from the get-go. It is also the most controversial because I call cybersecurity a low entry barrier field. I have received messages, comments, and even death threats because people seem to have stopped watching the video as soon as they saw low entry barrier. Now, low entry barrier is a loaded statement, and most people focus on the perceived advantages without realizing the consequences. While preparing for this video, I remembered an old post I made on social media way before I created my YouTube channel, which I called Why Can't You Get a Job and Why It May Not Be Your Fault. I will use this post and points from some other videos to explain to you why the odds are stacked against you and how you can improve them. Now, without further ado, roll the intro. Let's start with the first reason why you can't get a job. The first reason is that a low entry barrier is actually a double-edged sword. The entry barrier for tech fields is lower when compared to fields such as law and medicine because these two require expensive degrees that must be recognized by specific organizations and controlled practice and internships. Tech fields don't require any of this. You can literally sit in front of a computer for many hours a day from the comfort of your home and learn how to code and hack without set foot in a computer science class stinking of nerd. And boy, does it stink. I can still feel the smell in my nostrils to this day. But anyway, you can learn a full curriculum of computer science from home and then apply for a job. You don't need the approval of some secret order or Freemasonry of experts wearing cloaks that sit in a poor lit room and watch you code only to give you a thumbs up or a thumbs down afterward. And this is what I call low entry barrier. Studying and practicing at your own pace with no requirement to have a degree to land a job or operate a computer. No nerd smells, no cloaks. But hold on a second. You say, that seems amazing. What's the catch? Well, Cyberspartans don't believe in luck or free meals. We live by the paranoia and we die by the paranoia. And you are right. There is a flip side to this. If getting the knowledge and the skills is easy for me, so it is for everyone else. And that is the crux of the problem. Instead of competing with just a couple of people that can afford to have a degree, you are now competing with anyone in the world that has access to the internet. There are many hardworking and genius people out there that never managed to make it into high-paying jobs because they didn't have the means to make it into university or get any sort of degree. These people, given the right opportunity and given the right chances, they can outwork most everyone, which happen to have the means, such as the money, to land a good degree. At the same time, because of globalization, these people living sometimes in really poor countries can compete with you in salary. Because when it comes the time to negotiate, they can afford to ask for less, which may mean that they are going to be hired instead of you. Because this may come as a shocker, but some companies actually care more about the money than the skills. At the end of the day, companies have budgets. Having said all of this, that means that now you have to put 10x the effort to get the results that I used to have a couple of years ago. To some of you, millennials like me are similar to boomers that managed to get a lot of properties back in the day for the price of a spud. We joined the field at a time when it was booming and when the competition was not as vicious as it is right now. We have at this point good CVs and we've built ourselves up to a point where interviews are still a hassle, but the process is not as grueling because we have cloud, which you don't. But remember, when I started, I didn't have half of the resources that you have right now. And AI was science fiction. With all the resources available to you these days, surely it cannot be that hard to land a job, right? Right? Wrong. Technological advances give you leverage. But if everyone has leverage, that no one does. And the ones that fail to use this leverage will surely fall behind. I have explained how cybersecurity and tech fields have evolved over the years, and why you have to be versatile today in my video called Avoiding the Expert's Trap, which I highly recommend because it complements the content of this video. The point is that complexity and challenges, as well as technological advances, walk in lockstep. Technology solves a problem, and soon enough there is another problem. And this problem was created because now there is an abstraction layer that fixes the old problems, that allows you to come up with bigger and larger challenges. As an example, if you are living in a rented flat, your current challenge is probably to buy your own flat. Once you buy the flat, your next challenge is finding the right color for the walls of your living room. This problem didn't exist before because you didn't have a flat. But now that you have one, the possibilities increase, and so you have other problems that also need to be solved. The bottom line is that once a problem is solved, it's not a problem anymore, and a new problem arises. Because now you can focus on other problems. Do I get a thumbs up for my brilliant analogy? I hope so. Regardless of the field we talk about, you will see, especially if you are a millennial or a boomer, which noticed the technological advances over the last couple of years, that the bar is quite high. What used to be average is now mediocre, and what used to be above average is now average. As an example, a couple of years ago, 6 figures was a big deal. Nowadays, all you have to do is go to YouTube, and you will see on the front page at least 100 different influencers and YouTube channels explaining you how to become financially independent and make 10K a month. Now, it is true that more often than not, these people are scammers, but that is an entirely different story. What is happening these days is that buyers want to buy the best they can find, and sellers think they are the best. But what they fail to realize is that they are either not the best or that they are being measured by unreasonable standards. The buyer is the company you are applying for, and the seller is you. And it's not like companies are evil. It's just that they are trying to find the best they can find. They want the best bang for their buck. Hence why being well-rounded gives you a leg up, because there is a higher chance that you will fit most of their requirements. The second reason why you cannot land a job is what I call the queue jumpers. Now, most people think that people are applying for jobs through LinkedIn and other well-known platforms, and then HR will simply look through all the CVs and evaluate them using a fair method and choose the best candidate. Now, unfortunately for you, this is not correct. The hiring process is rigged with biases and moving parts that can ruin your chances that have nothing to do with your skills or even your personality sometimes. One of these is what I call the queue jumpers, meaning the ones that jump in front of the job application queue based on one or more of the following methods. The first one is that the position may be filled by an internal and more trusted employee. The second possibility is that someone may appear during your interview process that has much more experience and years in the industry and ends up beating you by seniority and not by skills. Seniority tends to be connected with skills, but not always. The third possibility, you already know it, is when someone working for the company recommends a friend or a friend of a friend, and that person gets priority over everyone else. The fourth possibility is that someone knows the recruiter. If you know the recruiter, it's the same as having a friend within the company, and that person can put the CV in front of the right person, such as the hiring manager. Another possibility is that you may end up having drinks with a founder or a co-founder of a small startup during an event or conference. After a couple of drinks and risky bets, that founder ends up creating a position just for you. It may also happen that you are applying for a position in another team within the same company you work for, but the competition happens to be other people that are more senior and more experienced or favored by one of the biases above. More often than not, we are inclined to think that we are passed over for a job because someone with better skills came along. But that is not always true. There is a chain of bureaucracy and back and forth during the interview process, and anyone in that chain can ruin your chances by making a biased decision. and they do make these biased decisions. The next reason why you cannot get the job is what I call the confused hiring manager. Let's be honest. Some, if not most, hiring managers don't really know what they are looking for. In my video that I named Avoiding the Experts Trap, I overview a crazy job spec that shows how clueless some companies and hiring managers are. I also point out that times have changed and it is now less common to see a job spec for a specific field of cybersecurity. And instead, what companies ask for is a combination of skills. A cloud security engineer with incident response capabilities is better than either of these. A security operations analyst with engineering capabilities, put a ring on them. And don't let them go. These additional requirements usually fall under the section called good to haves. And while these types of job specs get my seal of approval, which I don't use often, they risk wasting both parties' time. Applicants feel that they can apply for these positions because they feel that they know enough about each of these nice to haves, but they end up being rejected because they actually don't display enough maturity on either of them. Recruiters and hiring managers sometimes expect them to have more maturity on one of these requirements and not the other, even though they are both part of the job spec. And at the same time, these hiring managers and recruiters keep looking for a unicorn, that golden analyst or cybersecurity professional that has all of these skills. What ends up happening is that they are looking for a unicorn, but they don't really know how a unicorn looks like. And if you don't know what to look for, how will you know that you have found it? After reviewing hundreds of candidates, I can tell you that unicorns are extremely rare and usually they don't last in the market for too long. So a warning for the companies, don't be perfectionists because you are going to lose really good candidates. Another reason is location, and did I say location? Henry Ford said, a customer can have a car painted any color he wants as long as it is black. And the hiring manager said, the applicant can be anywhere in the world as long as I can see him from the office. TM. For some companies, the location of the candidate is quite relevant because relocation is expensive and full remote can be quite complicated depending on the size of the company and how strict the rules are within that company. You may be passed over for someone that lives closer to the office in the same city or at the very least in the same country. Even if you are better on paper. Likely the most hilarious interaction I had with a recruiter was when I applied for a fully remote job within Europe for a company in the Netherlands. And I was told that I had to be closer to the border. And to this day, I still don't know what that means. And at this point, you are thinking, well, that's a lot of reasons, but there are more. The next one is what I call the wrong fit. Big companies like Google and Facebook try to avoid biases by forcing candidates to go through an endless set of interviews. But I have bad news for them. It doesn't work. And the reason is simple. The people working at companies are affected not only by the culture of the company, which tends to be dictated by the people at the top, but also by the common traits, behaviors, and mindsets of the peers surrounding them. Now, you have heard the expression that people tend to be the average of people they surround themselves with. And companies are a perfect example of that. Companies have ways of working, an undertone, and several unspoken rules. Let me ask you this. Have you ever been in a situation where a comment that would make most of your friends laugh falls completely flat with a group of strangers? Anyone with common sense understands that if a candidate deviates in personality or mindset from the people interviewing them, they will either be rejected or be at a disadvantage because they do not fit. And the great thing about rejection is that once you decide to reject something, you will easily come up with an explanation for it, even if it's not a logical one. He didn't go deep enough in some of his answers. Now, this inherent bias generates a problem. Companies want people that think out of the box, but they end up hiring people that fit the culture. It follows that if your mindset, your behaviors, your thought process doesn't match the company, chances are you are going to be rejected, even if another company would choose you. Now, from my experience, the companies that ended up hiring me or working with me were companies where I could feel at ease and be myself during the interviews without holding back. These were interviews where I felt that the people interviewing me were similar to me in some shape or form. Now, the first minutes of an interview are quite critical, and most candidates fail to use them properly. This is something that I've discussed with clients before, and there are some tips that I usually share so they can take full advantage of these first minutes test the waters, and understand what they are up against. The last reason. We finally reached the last reason. Of course, the list is much bigger than these, but these are the top ones that I've considered valuable to share in this video. The last reason is candidates have been sold a lie. Yes, you're right, you have been lied to. I remember seeing this question on Reddit at some point where someone asked, how come there is so much new blood in cybersecurity and there is still a shortage of talent? Now, it is true that there are several reasons for this, but there is one major reason. And the reason is that most candidates come to the job market completely unprepared. They look like cybersecurity professionals based on their titles and their certifications, but they don't know crap. Now pick any area, money, dating, career, and search that on YouTube. Chances are there is a guru ready to tell you the 3 mistakes that you are making that are causing you to fail in any of these areas. The video usually has a stupid face on the thumbnail and some sort of lure, such as 100K, a Lamborghini, or even a fitness model. And somewhere in the video description there is a link for a course that is going to give you an unfair advantage, or so they call it. The problem is that social media is now overflowing with gurus selling courses with the classic success porn, such as I was living under a bridge for many years, then I took a course and in less than 24 hours, I was flying first class. And let's be real, who doesn't want something like this? New candidates are lured by the money and the terminals with green font, and they think that if they just take a few certifications, one more certification recommended by their favorite guru of the time, that then they just deserve a job. And why shouldn't they? They took the certification. The certification says that they are a certified cybersecurity professional. Where is my job? Where is my 100K? And it's not there. They can't find it. Now let me give it straight to you, and this is the time when I'm going to scold you. It took me 5 years of university and likely the same amount of time outside of university preparing, studying, with projects, to find myself in a position where I was blowing competition out of the water. I understood forensics, offensive security, cryptography, malware analysis, you name it. And this was not something that took me days, weeks, or even months. It took me years to achieve. So who are you to come to these fields and think that by just taking a few courses and watching a couple of tutorials, you will just get a foot on the door without paying your dues? Who do you think you are? Without putting in the time and the effort? Just because you took all the courses that some guru recommended on a reel? Are you serious? That's not how it works, folks. That's not how it works. Excuse me. This was quite intense. Okay, let's get back to the video. At this point, I have interviewed hundreds of candidates, and I can tell you that most CVs are bland, and the candidates simply lack the skills, even if they come with all the good intentions in the world. No skills or average skills means no job. No job means no 6 figures. That's how it works. I didn't make the rules. Now, some of you may be thinking, damn, there is no way I'm going to find a job with all of these against me. Well, I'll just give up. I'll find a job working at McDonald's. Ciao. Hold on, guys. It's not that bad. As usual, Cyberspartans don't look at problems, they look at solutions. And today I'm going to give you a few tips that can improve your odds so that you can beat the competition and get the job that you want. The first tip that I have to you is focus on fundamentals. And I've talked about this at length, ad nauseum at this point. Every piece of software and tech that you interact with rests on fundamentals. If you understand these concepts, you can understand anything. It's like a cheat code. The unfair advantage they keep talking about. This is my unfair advantage. I'm just giving it to you for free, just because you subscribe. And if you don't, shame on you. Now, short of joining a university, your best bet at learning this is either buying books or doing some targeted research online. And over time, you are going to learn how to combine these two together. Because books are great for fundamentals, but books tend to become obsolete over time, especially tech books. But if you are able to combine books with some perhaps online courses or even targeted research online, you are going to learn cybersecurity at the speed of light. And if you are looking for courses, you can look for courses that target networking, programming, cloud, distributed systems, operating systems, etc. Now, this process may come across as really overwhelming, but over time, you are going to get a sense for what matters and what doesn't. So stick to it. The second tip that I have for you is learn automation. For the ones that know me, automation and more specifically security automation, is the most interesting part of cybersecurity to me. And if you follow this video since the beginning, I talked about abstractions and technological advances, and more often than not, these are achieved through automation, because abstraction layers are no more than forms of automation. Knowing how to automate tasks, combined with an attention to detail, for instance, finding processes that are suboptimal in your company or your personal life, will help you scale your efforts and impact as well as getting you ahead. Programming, infrastructure as code such as Terraform are a few ways to automate tasks. Now, if you are curious which programming languages you should learn, check out my video, which I will link in the description, named "Which Programming Languages Should I Learn?" The third tip that I have for you is stop wasting time following influencers. Watching another video on certifications that you should take, or a useless interview with someone that used to live in the sewers and is now popping bottles with models and playing golf with the president, is not going to get you anywhere near your goals. Learn to tune out the noise and the FOMO and focus on yourself. Focus on learning. Focus on the silence. Focus on the process. Most cyber bros on YouTube talk about the same things again and again, and there is nothing new that they have to share, because they tend to copy each other. So you may as well use those 10 to 15 minutes of your life to sharpen your cyber skills. Remember that very few cybersecurity influencers selling courses have your best interest in mind. Their goal is to hook you with promises. Once more, I didn't make the rules. I just follow and understand them. Take it from a veteran. This is hard work. The first tip that I have for you is invest on your soft skills. In my video that I named "I Wish I Knew This as a Cybersecurity Student" and the top 5 commandments of an elite cybersecurity professional, I talk about the importance of being social and being fun to be around. Without getting into details, because these can be watched in those videos, which I highly recommend, they complement this video, your personality is much more important than your technical skills, especially during the interview process. Being boring and monotonous will put you at a severe disadvantage, and that will inevitably lead to you being rejected. I will link them in the description, and in these videos I share some tips that you can use to improve these skills. And finally, probably the most important tip, be patient, because success in any field takes time. You will not land a job overnight. That's just not how it works, unless you are specially talented or lucky. And if you are like me and everything that you get in life feels like pulling teeth, you are in for the long run, not the short, so be patient. Success does not come overnight, so take your time to learn and practice as much as you can. Nothing worth having in this life comes without commitment and pain. Shortcuts work in the short term and if you are lucky, and chances are you are not. And we reach the end of our video, Spartans. In this video, I've decided to address a controversial term that I use to describe cybersecurity: low entry barrier. Low entry barrier can mean one of two things: easy to learn and practice, or easy to land a job. My definition focuses on the first, but it can easily be applied to the second. As the easier it is for you to gain a skill, the easier it is for you to find yourself with a job. Of course, it's not that easy, because the more people you have in the market and the easier it is to break into the market, the lower is going to be your salary and the more competitive it's going to be. But still, you are going to get a job eventually. I've also decided to share why your odds right now are stacked against you when compared to me a couple of years ago, and some ways you can improve them, as usual. Now, this video is not an appeal to victim mindset or self-pity, but a change in attitude. Now, you may be asking yourself, how do I know if it's my fault when I'm not getting a job? Well, that's a tough question because it depends on a lot of factors, but I can tell you something. You need to understand where you are failing in the interview process. This is why it is important to keep a record, a journal of all of your interviews. If you are failing every time at the same stage, chances are it is best to go back to the whiteboard and rethink your approach. If, on the other hand, you keep getting stuck on different stages, chances are there are other external factors that are ruining your chances. Remember that during the interview processes there are many factors, moving parts, and forces, external forces, at work that have nothing to do with your skills or even your personality. Keeping your head high, reflecting on your interviews, and preparing for the next is the best you can do. This field is hard and it comes with dedication, time, and patience. Once you land your first job, it's smooth sailing, so keep at it. Now, to finish, I would like to leave you something to get the point across. I recall hearing or reading at some point an interesting story involving one of the fangs. recruiters ran an experiment where they showed interview packages to internal interviewers. They did not reveal the identity of these people being interviewed, they just provided the interview packages, which usually includes the feedback, the performance during the interviews, the CVs, etc., depending on the company. And the people were supposed to provide a verdict to hire or not to hire. Now, some of these interview packages were met with hire and some were met with not hire. But the surprise here is that the interviewers were actually looking at their own packages when they joined the company. So this means that some of these interviewers were rejecting themselves. Keep the last paragraph in mind next time you get rejected or you get ghosted. As you can see, it's not always your fault. Until next time, stay safe, stay paranoid.